people maybe over focus on quantity and underestimate quality.
A baby takes its first steps. Firstly, there's excitement around them taking their first steps, but then they fall. They needed to fail in order to know how to take the next step.
More is better versus more isn't better, better is better. You are seeing such a small, microscopic percentage of people, and you're going like, I want to look like them, or I need to, or I'm comparing myself.
It's essentially like learning a new language. You know, you don't go into a French class on week 1 and expect to be just able to speak fluently French.
Alcohol has obviously got its benefits and negatives, and I think
This is one of my pet peeves with training, and it's like, I think we're asking the wrong question.
You're going to have setbacks. You're going to sometimes fail, but it's how you respond to that in a positive way that's going to allow you to either take a step forward or you're going to move 2 steps back.
Hey there, and welcome to the Future Fitness Lifestyle. If you're passionate about staying fit, healthy, and mentally sharp, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Matt Cooney, and each week we dive into the latest trends, expert insights, and actionable tips to help you take your fitness, nutrition, and mental well-being to the next level. Ready to level up your health and fitness? Let's jump in and get started. That's sinking feeling in your stomach. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Future Fitness Lifestyle Podcast. And today is the first episode, well, for me and Eve anyway, being back in Ireland. So new location, first time back home in a long time. So yeah, looking forward to it. Today is going to be another Q&A. It's going to be part 2 because I severely underestimated how much we are able to talk, and I don't know how I thought we'd get through 9 questions in 45 minutes, which, yeah, definitely not going to happen. But we have some really good questions today, and we're going to be looking into check-ins, a bit of mindset. There's drugs, there's alcohol, there's training. There's actually a nice variety of questions to really, I'm actually interested to hear some of people's opinions on some of the questions we got. So massive thank you to everybody who put in a question, and also for anybody listening. It's really appreciated, all the support. So today, no, we won't keep harping on. We'll go straight into it. First, how is everybody feeling today? Let you all say hello.
Good.
Been better, been
Good.
worse.
All good.
Feeling
Cool.
double good.
All good. Right. First question. How to get past the check-in dread? Eve, I'm going to put you in the fire line here. Obviously, this was not sent by one of our clients, so because that would never happen. So thanks for sending it in. Whoever sent it in definitely wasn't an MC Future Fitness client. But Eve, how do we get past the check-in dread?
I think definitely with check-in dread, pretty much every client will have it at some stage, and this is actually really common, and it happens as well. And especially when a client is with us, if they're kind of dreading checking in, I think these are the most important check-ins, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that. You know, it's very easy to check in when everything's going good, you're progressing, you're feeling great, you're smashing it. But it's more important to check in when things aren't going well, if you're struggling with something, you know, if you're not progressing, because if we're not checking in, then it's hard to see, okay, what's going wrong, or what do we need to kind of focus on. And like I always say that it's the check-ins you don't want to do are like the most important ones. And your coach is there to kind of support you no matter what you're going through. And I think often maybe a client might have a dread about checking in, maybe thinking that their coach is going to give out to them or something, but your coach shouldn't be giving out to you. And I know a lot of clients might have had bad experiences in the past with coaches where, you know, if they haven't been doing what they're meant to do, a coach or a client, the coach might give out to them, but your coach is there to support you, help you reach your goals, and they just want to help you in any way you can. So that communication is so important, that whatever you're struggling with, you let your coach know so that we can see what you need to kind of focus on. And like if something hasn't gone right, we need to kind of see, okay, what happened, reflect on it, and how can we improve, or how do we need to get back on track so that, you know, you're making your progress, and achieving your goals. So I think that's pretty much my point.
Sharon, have you anything to add?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, when life gets busy, it can be maybe a little bit harder for them, or they might get overwhelmed with things that they might have been able to do when things were a little bit quieter. And it's what can happen is, maybe you mightn't be eating as well, or you mightn't be getting all your training sessions in, and you might be beating yourself up over it, but there's a reason behind it. And it's kind of, maybe your coach is saying, okay, this is what we're going to do: X with your nutrition, we're going to do Y with your training, we're going to do 2 with your steps, but maybe that's not the right thing to do. So it's so important that you are actually checking in and saying, okay, I couldn't do this. I struggled with that. And this is actually going on for me right now. And it's kind of telling the bigger picture. Because, with your training, for example, it's 1 hour in the day, but maybe the other 23 hours for you might be really stressful. There could be a lot of personal stuff going on, work could be really busy. And like, I even had this with clients recently. It's like, okay, how can we simplify this? If you're overwhelmed, how can we make it easier? Or what's the simplest thing we can do so that we can keep making progress? Or even, like, for some people, maybe they mightn't be able to progress, but they might be able to maintain. And it's that kind of reaching out, that asking, the communication piece again that we were chatting about in the last podcast. How important it is. And like Eve said, it's more so important when you're struggling, when things aren't going right, reaching out to your coach, asking them for support or guidance, or even to just communicate what's going on or how you're feeling, because everything is going on and you're not able to get what you think, or you're not meeting your own expectations of yourself.
Yeah, and I think another thing there that just kind of popped into my head was, a lot of clients that might have been struggling with something, like for example, they're doing 3 days in the gym, and a client reaches out and they're like, okay, I'm really struggling to get my 3 workouts in, and I'm just not enjoying them, or I hate this exercise, or I'm not enjoying it. And we've actually made some changes, like, okay, let's maybe move back to 2 days. There's a lot going on at the moment. Let's strip things back a bit. Let's make your training a bit more enjoyable. Let's switch out a couple of exercises that you don't like doing. And as a result, then the client is like, okay, I feel so much better. I'm enjoying my workout so much more. And as a result, they're able to be a lot more consistent then. And I've had that with so many different clients in the past where, they've reached out when they're struggling with something. We've made a little change like that. And, it's had such a huge impact then on their consistency and their progress.
I think that's why the client coaching relationship is so important, and building that trust. You're not going to get it from a 4, 6, 8 week program. That it's going to come like from working with a coach longer term and getting to know each other, so that you have a little bit more trust.
Everybody act as if nothing happened. So I don't know how this is going to sound on the actual recording, but me and Eve just disconnected. We're back, and we're gonna keep it going. So the check-in dread. The way I would look at this question is look at why you're having that feeling. So when we look at dreading something, usually what it is could be of many things, honestly, but it could be like you feel like you've done something wrong. You maybe taking ownership is quite hard. So this is where a lot of people, again, sometimes with accountability, everybody wants accountability. Everyone that signs up for coaching wants it. But then when you actually have to be accountable and take ownership sometimes when things haven't been going the way maybe you planned, that can be quite difficult. And we talked about that last week, I'm sure, with like avoidance. Avoidance is a huge thing that people turn to. So that's the things I'd be looking at, is to go, okay, what are the reasons? What am I actually dreading here? And also then a lot of it is the perception of the situation. So your perceiving again could be, this is where it comes back to like emotions like guilt or shame, or it could be a thing of like you're dreading it because you feel like, I've had this before where you might feel like you're letting the coach down, or so you don't want to check in, and I think this is really important to kind of ask yourself those questions and go, okay, like what am I actually dreading here? And you'll see it so many times. People in coaching will put off checking in, and then it's like anything, the more you put it off, the more it builds up, and a small thing becomes something bigger. And then when you actually do it, it's like eating the frog. When you actually do the thing and just do the check-in and we get feedback, it's never as bad as it seems, and you can actually start to move on. When you have it in your head, that's not really the best place for it. So that's the way I would look at it. And I think this is a nice little intro into the next question, which I want to ask Tommy, which is, how do you approach setbacks and failures with clients?
Yeah, good question, Matt, and something that definitely comes up a lot within the sessions that I do with clients and that. And the first step usually in my framework is usually just to ask people, what does failure mean to them? And usually when somebody asks that question, feelings come up, thoughts come up, and we can then be able to go through that process of what that experience actually means to them. For a lot of people, failure can be linked back to childhood experiences. If it's the case that they grew up in an environment where there was a lot of criticism, there wasn't much room for praise. Something that's actually important too is to recognize that if there's actually neither there, if there's neither praise nor criticism, you could actually take setbacks or failure in a negative way. And normally then what we do is try to reframe what failure means to that individual, because a lot of people, when they're presented with a challenge and they feel like they've failed or let themselves down, usually that's directly associated with their self-confidence, self-worth, self-esteem, which then obviously compounds and has a negative experience on them to be able to go on and do more challenges or to take on new opportunities, because they have this very unconscious belief about failures linked to their own personal identity. And so what we usually do is, like I said, asking the question first and foremost, what failure means to that person. And they might not be able to directly link it back to an experience where it had a very powerful effect on them, but that's where we start working through the thoughts, working through the feelings, giving them the space to be able to explore and go back and essentially, like I said, just reframing what failure means, because failure is actually a real opportunity for people to be able to learn, grow and develop. Failure is actually where you're going to get the best lessons in life, because you're going to learn so much about yourself through that experience. And failure, if you can reshape your perception of failure, life becomes a lot more easier. It becomes a lot more enjoyable, it becomes a lot more fun, because you don't see failure as this real negative experience that you're afraid of. And when you can change your perception of that, like I said, life definitely becomes a lot more easier. So it's definitely just trying to reframe your perception of failure and having that growth mindset when it comes to failure, and seeing failure as an opportunity for you to be able to evolve and grow from, and to not see it as a negative experience.
I can completely agree with that. I actually have an analogy that I use on failure with a few clients. I think, did I use it this week? But firstly, I think it's really important to recognize that like everybody fails. And I think when we fail, or when we essentially do something wrong, we assume that like we're the only ones that failed in that, and that everybody else who tried it succeeded. But everybody fails. You can't go through this life without failing. And just like what Tommy was saying there, it is your perception on failure. An analogy I like to use is like, I firmly believe that we have all the answers when we're born as babies, and then we grow up and we get programmed into thinking other things. But like a baby, when a baby takes its first steps, firstly there's excitement around them taking their first steps, but then they fall because they've never walked before. They have no idea how to walk, but they had to fall in order to know how to take the next step, in order to realize, okay, now I need to proportion my body right, or I need to do this. And they needed to fail in order to know how to take the next step. So it's in kind of looking at it in that way, that like you need to, in every failure, assuming you're learning from your failures, but in every failure, there's the answer to the next step. And when you look at it like that, like Tommy said, it becomes enjoyable, and you're able to see it for the positive aspect of it, rather than seeing it as this negative thing that you fucked up or something.
Yeah.
It's
Yes,
like I love
definitely,
that
Rose.
phrase of. Sorry, Tommy, you're going to say something?
No, you walk about, Sharon.
I was just going to say about like failing forward. You know, it's like you're probably going to fuck up. Everything isn't going to be perfect. That like it's not that it won't happen. It will, but not to sit there and dwell on it, and just kind of keep moving forward, even if it means like doing a dance of one step forward, two back for a little while until you figure it out. But eventually you'll figure it out, and there'll be less steps back.
Definitely. I think I definitely learned that failing forward. I think from Les Brown, I think he always says that, Sharon, to fall forward. But I think, like what Roshan is saying, you know, it's like it's the negative dialogue that follows the experience that comes with failure. And again, it is that very self-critical voice inside your head that, again, is stemming from an experience that you had at a particular time in your life. What I always kind of like to talk to clients about is like, where do you think that voice is coming from? Getting them to remove the fact that they believe that voice themselves is themselves, because essentially they just learned that voice from a particular individual, or it could have been anything in life, influenced by so many different factors in life. But getting them to see that voice as not something that's actually a part of them, that it's something that they've just learned from an experience, and to actually like see failure as a real positive. You know, that essentially like failure is almost like learned practice. You know, when you go to the gym, what do you do in the gym? You're constantly pushing your muscles, trying to either increase the reps, increase the weights, but you're just learning to do that over a period of time. And there's always going to be times where you're going to have setbacks, and it's just about being able to respond to those setbacks, because that's what's going to continue the cycle, is essentially how you respond to it. Do you continue with the negative voice? Do you continue to allow that negative voice to make you feel a certain way? Or then do you be able to actually take a step back and recognize that that voice is not you, that's just come from someone else, and that you want to be able to then reflect on the experience that you just had and draw the lessons from that.
Yeah, and the way I kind of like to look at it as well is like, even if you take your future self or the person you want to become, if we even work backwards, if you're like, okay, I want to become this person, but this person needs to learn 50 lessons in life, and all of those lessons are going to come from a failure of some form. If you look at it like that, you're like, okay, let's fail, because I need 50 of them to get to the person I want to become. And again, you're just approaching it you're like, okay, I need to fail because I want to get to that person. So it's not like, it's kind of like if you're going into sales or something, and what's that saying that like, you might need 50 no's before you get that yes. Then you're going to be like, right, give me these sales because I want to tally up all these no's before I get to that yes, knowing that you're going to get there. And it just creates it a bit more looking at it as from a positive perspective.
And it's like, you know, anybody who's kind of new with kind of nutrition and training and habits and routines to improve their lifestyle, it's essentially like learning a new language. You know, you don't go into a French class on week one and expect to be just able to speak fluently French. You know, you have to kind of learn week by week and slowly build it up.
Definitely, it's that sense of, you know, Sharon, as you're talking about there, or Roshan, you know, it's like essentially like, let's take example of the French class. You know, you go in there and you might feel overwhelmed by the fact that I don't know French, but then essentially then that overwhelmment can then like compound that limiting belief that you have about yourself, that I'm not good enough. When actually what you just said there, Sharon, or like I said, Roisin, is like, it's day one. Give yourself a break. I'm not going to be fluent in this. I'm not going to be able to get up in front of the class and start speaking fluent French. It's going to take time, and that's where you understand the actual process of any experience, is that you have to go through the process to learn the process, and through that process of experience, you're going to have setbacks. You're going to sometimes fail, but it's how you respond to that in a positive way that's going to allow you to either take a step forward or you're going to move 2 steps back.
And I feel like that's the voice of the ego, because our egos essentially want us to be the absolute best of with anything that we start from the get-go. Like as soon as we're like, I want to speak French, they want us to be the best. And so as soon as there's a side of that not happening, you're going to hear that ego voice being like, give up, don't even bother, don't even try, you can't do this, it's not worth it. And it's, again, just being able to have that separation, to be able to separate that voice and know that that's not your truth, it's just a part of you.
I'm back.
That's like, why are we all speaking French now on this podcast?
I just couldn't listen to anymore, and I had to go.
In all of us a little bit.
I had to check out.
We're like, when is he coming back?
We kept
So,
one. We kept one.
yeah, I could hear them. I could hear it upstairs, and I was like, still going. But yeah, my internet's coming in and out. So forgive me. But yeah, I suppose with failure, for me, I think you all made good points from what I heard in terms of like reframing it and being able to look at it from a different lens. And I heard a question somewhere recently, and it was kind of like, if you take your children, they're fully grown. It's like, would you rather them go through life with absolutely no challenges, no failures, no experiences, or would you rather them actually go through, like, put them through some adversity, some challenges? And it's so true, because that's what builds character. It's what builds resilience, is the failures, the setbacks, and the lessons and experiences you get from that. So I thought it was a really interesting way to look at it, especially when you look at it, because obviously our children, your kids, you're never going to want anything negative to happen, but you do want those characteristics that can be built from challenging times to be installed in them, and if they just get everything they ever wanted, they never had to go through anything, they're probably not going to have those characteristics, and I always think about failure from a coaching standpoint, and like setbacks is like, I actually sounds weird, but I kind of want clients to fail, to have setbacks, because it's real life. Like if they go through a process and there's never any setback or failure, I'm kind of like, what are they going to do when that actually happens then, and I think this is where Sharon talked about this with the check-in, is like real life versus sometimes people do these like plans where it's 8, 10, 12 weeks, and it's like, put your life on hold. So it's just like, that's all I'm doing is this plan or transformation, when it's like, you don't really want to do that, because after that 8 or 12 weeks, your life has to continue. So it needs to be integrated into your life. You need to actually have these challenges, have these setbacks, and most of the time, again, that's what actually sparks change. It's not the doing everything right. It's actually getting something wrong or failing that goes, okay, like I need to change this, because if I don't, I'm going to continue to not see the result that I want, So I always like to look at fail forward, fail fast, and the more you can do that, and Tommy said, the more you take that approach, the less you let it affect you, and the more you nearly look for it going forward,
And just lastly, Cooney, I think it actually ties in with the check-in thing too. What I say, like lastly, is that a lot of people feel like failure is letting other people down and letting themselves down. and hence why it like prevents certain people, like you said, sending check-ins and that, because they feel like they're either letting you down, Sharon down, Roisin down, or Reid down, by doing something that they believe is wrong when it isn't wrong at all. It's just that experience that they've had maybe at a particular time, and it's obviously compounded over time, has made them believe that they're letting people down. And then when you have that sense that you're letting someone down, or you're letting yourself down, essentially what you're going to do is you're going to avoid those experiences because you don't want to have that feeling again. So it's about then just getting the clients to understand that this happened to you then. And it's always like reframed, like, what would you say to your younger self back then about this experience that you feel like a failure? You wouldn't criticize a child. And essentially just getting them to kind of give themselves, their younger selves, that part of themselves that feels very hurt and wounded, the compassion that they needed at the time, to be able to then be able to draw the lessons from that experience.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on to the next question. This is a really good one. So the question is, listening to the two Johnnies podcast today talking about drugs, I feel looking at the younger generation, they avoid alcohol and take substances to achieve a high to avoid calories. Tough one, but one I'd like to hear coaches' thoughts on in terms of performance. So who's the youngest, Sharon or Ro? Who's the younger generation?
I'm the youngest.
Ro. I'm going to let you go.
Generation, though. Well, I think you need to talk about performance. You're the coaches.
Yeah, I'm just going to like scrap the performance for a minute. I want to know the actual opinion on the younger generation.
I guess I would know, like, I don't know. I guess there is a lot more people are like not drinking as much and going down that route. And then I feel like maybe, yeah, they're looking at drugs as a way of not having to having to intake calories to get that high and to go out. But I don't know in terms of performance and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think with, like, it's not just really about the calories. I mean, like, obviously alcohol has calories, so you could go out and drink 1,000 calories, whereas if you're taking drugs, you're not taking any extra calories, but that's going to have a detrimental effect on your performance in the following days, whether it's in the gym. You're going to see your sleep, obviously, is going to be the biggest thing that's impacted. You're probably going to have lower willpower with your nutrition in the following days. You're just going to still feel like crap, and you're going to see that effect in the gym with your strength, with your progress, with your recovery. It's definitely not a better option than alcohol. And I think it would definitely have similar effects to alcohol on your performance.
Yeah. I'm like interested just to basically chat about this stuff because I don't really know that much about the younger generation. Willie, my friend Willie Mulder always says to me, like, he's like, you know nothing about anything going on in the world. And I'm like, yes, that's on purpose. I stick to like what I need to know. Ask me about like stress, the nervous system, health, I'm there. Even what Trump is elected yesterday, ask me about politics, anything else, I don't have a clue. And that's on purpose. I'm like, there's people that need to know about that stuff. I'll let them do it. But that's definitely like, so for me, I definitely see that in the younger generation. Like our generation was very much alcohol based, and definitely not gym based. I didn't know the only bar I knew was Long Charlie's Blow. So back at the time, I was behind the bar actually there for a while, and yeah, so I think definitely our generation was much more alcohol, and I would say like sport. Sport was still big, but not the gym. Whereas definitely now, like if you go look in gyms now, like I think I remember being like 18. I was like one of the only. There wasn't many people in the gym when I was 18 that were around my age, and now it's like 14, 15. That like the gym is packed more full of younger lads. Like so, there's lots of benefits. I think if you look at it, like people aren't drinking as much like the younger generation. That's definitely a positive, net positive. They're going to the gym a lot more. That's definitely positive. But then the whole taking drugs. Yeah, like I wonder, is it more of a cultural, like society type of thing, and being just influenced by peers? Because definitely, when I look at like alcohol, for me growing up, that was heavily influenced by my environment, what was going on around me, our town. Like it was just a normal thing, you know. So I don't know. I wonder, is it just like a sheep approach that it's just becoming more and this even goes to like drugs. I can something I probably know more of is steroids. Like as in like steroids even are now a lot more popular in younger people compared to which is like performance enhancing. So you're talking about performance. Is that maybe what the question is based on? Performance enhancing drugs? No, because that's definitely a thing, and it's probably something that a lot of people, if you're not into the gym, you wouldn't even really know this. But they're a lot more readily available, talked about, used by younger people nowadays. Um, I don't know if that's part of the question, but it's something I observe anyway.
I think don't take drugs in any shape, form.
Drugs are bad.
Just have a few vodkas, you'll be fine.
I think it's. I think there's a lot in the question. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what does it actually mean. Performance? Is it like are they replacing alcohol with substances that they use to help them in sport and that? Like, yeah, that'd be sad to hear if that is the case. Now, you know that young people these days are taking substances to improve their performance, whether it's in like sport or whether it's in the gym and that. Because as you said, Matt, things now are so readily available. I remember, like, obviously when I first started out in the gym, you kind of knew maybe like a couple of people who were like on steroids, and steroids was this like big, huge, like secret thing. It was like, ooh, dangerous, you know. It was like something I knew nothing about, but just my understanding of it, you know, that, you know, it was dangerous and that, you know, it had obviously a lot of these downfalls. But yeah, it would be sad to hear that if young people today are taking enhancing performance drugs to improve their level of performance, which in my mind probably doesn't surprise me, because I suppose at the level of how intense society is today, particularly with young people and that, and wanting to be better, wanting to be the best. I can imagine there's a lot of pressure on young people today in like sport and GAA, rugby, soccer, wanting to succeed, wanting to do good, and maybe taking a little bit of bad advice from someone who be like, hey, this is going to make you score a couple of points more in the game. It's going to make you last longer in the game, and we're going to be stronger in the game. How easily influenced young people can be today. So it would be sad to hear that. Again, like, I don't think, not that I'm aware of, you know, particularly in amateur sports, like young people aren't tested. So what's the boundaries there when it comes to that? So yeah, I definitely think there's probably a lot of research that could probably go into that right now. As I said, I would hope from a moral point of view that isn't going on, but simply just don't know.
Yeah.
I think there's a whole generation that we don't know about. And like Tommy was saying there, like young people, they're so easily influenced, and peer pressure is a huge thing. So if it's cool to be taking drugs, they usually questions don't even get asked. They'll just take them if it means that they're going to get X result. And even with alcohol being like this, you know, it's coming in that not many people are drinking as much because of for the mental side of things, but just the effect of alcohol, that they're steering more towards taking drugs and kind of putting off. I can see that there is probably a whole generation there that we don't see because we're out of that loop at the moment. But just thinking back when you were younger and how easily peer pressure can get to you, and you don't really ask too many questions. You just kind of you want to be doing what all the cool people are doing, or what you need to be doing in order to kind of fit in.
I wonder, is it as well, you know, like maybe a hyper focus on aesthetics? Do you know, like when we were younger, like people didn't worry as much about maybe how they looked and things, whereas now people are kind of in the gym, maybe they're in there, they want to look better, maybe that's outweighing the feeling better part of it. It's very aesthetics, appearance, and maybe that sounds overgeneralizing, but it could be that that with the fact that maybe taking substances is more the norm. It's like for us, smoking and drinking would have been more the norm when we were younger, but maybe now the norm for younger people could be substances. Again, it's just
I definitely think you're right. There's something there with like I think social media has a huge influence on it, and it is actually what I was thinking about, Sharon, before you said that was like, yeah, I think you're dead right because like when we look back to even when I first started the gym, like social media wasn't a thing really, and it wasn't like who was posting their. I always think of this. I was like, oh, I would have liked to kind of have taken more progress pictures and posted more. I still wouldn't have had the confidence anyway. But even back then, because I go looking, and I'm like, I don't have anything from my first few years. I didn't ever like. I didn't know anybody who was posting things on social media anyway. Like only maybe one or two, the famous YouTube people. That was it. Like, whereas now it's kind of like part of it, and I think a lot of people, like you said, probably have more pressure. I think the younger generations definitely focus more on how they look, and I think it is because of social media and how it's just how it is. And I think you said it like even for me, something I was thinking, and it's not even like it's not really right, but the way it went growing up to me, I always looked at like you said, probably alcohol and smoking as like not really doing something wrong, but drugs was doing something wrong. So, and even when I was drinking, I was underage as well, like so. But I still didn't feel like I still did anything wrong. But drugs was like a big thing, whereas I think now it's maybe just reversed a bit. And maybe there's I don't really know does the effects of like I don't know drugs like you obviously still get affected, I presume. But definitely the effects of alcohol on performance is like everybody knows what being hungover feels like and how shit it is, mentally and physically. So that's definite. And it's like, I don't know if people are focused more on their appearance as well and knowing like how that alcohol will negatively affect that, especially if they can't train or have motivation to do anything. They're eating crap the days after. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting topic. We need someone young here.
The toxic part of this, though, then as well, like what Sharon was saying about social media, is that half the shit you see on social media, people don't look like that. There's so many apps to face tune and to make yourself airbrush yourself and make yourself look so aesthetically pleasing that younger generation looking at that and be like, oh, he's taking steroids or she's doing this to look like that. And so they get caught up in that loop, and those steroids and stuff aren't actually getting you to look like that. But you just assume, because, it's airbrushed and it's filtered and all of this, that you think that if you take these drugs that you're going to look like that. But in actual fact, if you take away the filters and all that, you're doing more damage than actually aesthetically, fixing yourself in a sense.
I think to find out the answer to this question, we're going to have to MC Future Fitness podcast out live on the road and go interview people.
And go where, Tommy?
Wherever young people are these days.
Wherever the young people
Pubs
hang
or
out.
gyms.
Oh, we need to go around with a microphone and like interview people.
Yes, do you know, like you see those videos of people on the street with a microphone going.
Yeah.
Where are all the raves?
Where are the cool kids at?
Where are all the
We're old.
It is though, Roshi, you're really right there. And something this is like it's actually insane when you think about it, right? Like what we do on social media and with physiques, it's the equivalent of me and Tommy looking at Ronaldo and Messi and going like I'm not as good as them at soccer, like I'm so disappointed with my life. Like you're looking at the best physiques in the world and going like, which is if you actually because social media the way algorithms work, it gets shown to you. When you take this as a percentage of the whole world, you are seeing such a small, microscopic percentage of people, and you're going like, I want to look like them, or I need to, or I'm comparing myself. It's literally like taking Ronaldo and Messi and going down to Nina Celtic there and being like, why do you not play like these guys? It that's the comparison you're really making, which is it sounds funny when we talk about soccer, but like people are doing that with their appearance, you know.
Cooney, I am sad that I'm not like Messi on the football pitch.
Visualization. My left foot is
Well, if
like
you take
Messi's,
this
I'm sure.
magic pill, Tommy, you will be.
Yeah.
And buy his boots. So,
You only need to take it every day for the rest of your life.
so next question. We have two more. We have what time are we? We're nearly there. We have actually one on alcohol, which is a good way into it, but I think we'll finish on that one. The next one here is: do you reckon you can build a decent enough physique with three resistance training sessions a week? So Sharon, I'm gonna ask you that question
Yeah,
first. I definitely want to chime
yeah,
in on this because I kind of want to rant.
definitely. I used to always train 4 days, and I was teaching classes, and I was just kind of doing loads, and the quality of them wouldn't have been half as good as the quality of 3 training sessions that I'm doing now per week. Obviously, maybe doing a bit of cardio as well on the side and steps, but people maybe over focus on quantity and underestimate quality, and you can only train as hard as you're going to recover. So if you're, just say for example, training 5 days a week, and maybe for someone who might have the time or hasn't children, or maybe work won't be that busy, from 5 days could be doable. But anyone who is busy, has life going on in the background, has small kids, like 3 really good training days might just be enough, and then a little bit of cardio and having good recovery in between, and focusing on, again, everything that's happening outside of those training sessions, and not just looking at, okay, that's only 3 training sessions. Do 3 really good ones, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree 100% with Sharon, and I definitely think majority of people should probably be training 3 days a week, and that would be better for them than training 4 days or training 5 days. And yeah, like Sharon was saying there, just recovery is such an important part of it. And if you're going into a session, if you're doing 4 or 5 days a week, you're going to half-arse them. Whereas if you did 3 proper sessions, you're recovering well, you're able to push them, you're able to perform good in sessions, progress them week on week. That's going to have such a bigger benefit on your progress in the long term. And I think probably even most of my clients are doing 3 days per week. So yeah, I definitely agree.
Okay. So I think this is one of my pet peeves with training, and it's like I think we're asking the wrong question. The question is because when you're saying, do you reckon you could build a decent enough physique with 3 resistance training sessions? What you're saying, implying, is like the frequency matters. So like 3 sessions is better than 4, and then 5 sessions is better than 4. So it's like it's just that again, Sharon, you said it, quality versus quantity, but we feel like, and even when you
Small.
ask people to talk about training, what they don't tell you what they do in their training. They say I do 3 days a week for an hour. So they're talking about the time and the amount, which both are actually irrelevant when you look at it, because you could do 7 days a week, 2 hours a day, but the quality is absolutely piss poor and makes zero progress. Versus somebody could do literally, this is actually, it sounds exaggerated, but literally 1 day a week versus 7. But if their quality is actually where it needs to be, they'll make more progress than the person doing 2 hours a day of garbage. And so it's like looking at the question, the big question is, what are you doing inside the session? That's what we need to look at. And it's so much overlooked, and it just can drive me mad because that's where, and I think people get that unrealistic expectation then that they feel like it's not enough. I should be doing more. When it's like, no, actually, if you look at a lot of even the best people in the world, Dorian Yates, I think, remember saying his sessions were like 45 minutes long. But yeah, the by the way, he's 6-time Mr. Olympia to anyone. But then some people feel like they have to do 2 hours a day, you know? And it's like same with 3 days a week. 3 to 4, I find, is like a sweet spot for most normal people that don't want to live in the gym. And it's like you're also, when you say building up decent physique, you have to remember what that actually is. So that is literally putting a stress on the body that is going to break down muscle fibers, which then will recover, repair, and grow bigger. So again, that's the process of building physique. So we have to actually understand what that is, you know, versus, you know, I go lift weights. That's lifting weights is the way we do that, is like usually with resistance, putting resistance on the muscle. But that's where what you do inside your training, the way you perform it, your technique and your intensity, actually how hard you push yourself, is like stratospheres in front of how many days and how long you spend at the gym.
And also how long you can consistently do that for.
Yeah.
Over months, over years.
Yeah, exactly. And
yeah, and I think we even would see that with a lot of our clients that will come to us. We'd like have a lot of new clients, and we've actually, from what they're doing, we've actually like reduced the amount of training they're doing, and they've gotten better results. They've made more progress. And initially they're kind of like, what, I'm going to be doing less. This isn't going to help. I'm just going to be worse off. And then like, you have to get them to kind of trust the process. But when they do, then they're like, oh my God, I'm actually doing less, but I'm making more progress.
Yeah. I always give the analogy of a dartboard. So it's like, if you're playing darts, you could throw as many darts at the board as you want, but if you never hit the board, you never score. But if you have one dart and you hit the bullseye or triple 20, you're going to get way more. You've scored, you know? So it's like hitting the target of what you actually want to do. Yeah, I could do a rant, a full podcast on training. I will at some point. Any other point on it before we move to the last question?
I gotta go.
I was just going to say, it's all about that mindset, though, isn't it? We've been trained to have that mindset of the more we work, it doesn't mean enough to us if we're not giving it our all and constantly working, even if it's with working out or just our jobs. We've grown up to think that the harder you work, the more you're going to get from it. And it's very hard then to, like you as coaches, tell someone to slow down, because they're automatically thinking, this is me showing weakness in a sense, or giving up, rather than seeing the benefits.
Yeah, I think it's that more is better versus more isn't better, better is better.
And I think I would have had that mindset definitely. More is better. I think Cooney, when you first started putting me down to like 4-day programs years ago, I was like, I don't know, I'd rather be doing 5. And it's like you said, it is the quality over the quantity that is going to make a difference in your progress. So it's, I suppose, just breaking down your own perception of what it is, and also self-education. I think that's why the coaches, you guys doing that, is actually educating clients on that, being like, when you hear that, I'm only working out 3 days a week, and like someone's response might be like, sure, what can you do in 3 days? I think that's just the uneducated person out there who is like seeing these people online who are like working out every day, they look incredible, their physiques are like this, and it's just it's all misinformation, misperception, and that's why it's so important to have good coaches who are knowledgeable in this aspect of training.
So we'll move on to the last question. So this one is going to be a full podcast over the next 2 weeks, so we won't go too far into it. But the question is thoughts on alcohol in general, be it deficit, maintenance, performance. How do you approach it? Thoughts on being alcohol-free, binging?
A lot of in that question.
Yeah.
Tune in next week when we talk about this in more detail.
Yeah. We're gonna go full send on this, but what's a 60-second synopsis summary for you of that question?
I think alcohol has obviously got its benefits and negatives, and I think it depends like how your relationship is with alcohol. So for example, having a couple of drinks, if you're able to have a couple of drinks and enjoy them, then there's absolutely no problem with that. But if you're like going out every weekend and getting absolutely smashed, like that's going to have a negative impact on so many areas, like your performance, your mental health, your stress, your sleep. And I think if you're somebody who's not able to kind of take a bit of a balanced approach with alcohol, then, you know, taking time away from it is probably a good option. And like me and you, Matt, we've done the 100 days at the start of the year and took a full 100 days off alcohol. I saw so many benefits from doing that. Just like my sleep was never better. I think the biggest one for me was my digestion was probably the best it's ever been for a full 100 days. Obviously the gym, strength, recovery, again, massive positive impact on those areas. But saying that, like, I wouldn't stay off alcohol for the rest of my life. And I love going out and having a couple of drinks. I love socializing. I love margaritas, espresso martinis, red wine. And I think, you know, being able to have them and being able to include them now and again is important. But yeah, I think that's my 2 cents.
Tommy, Ro,
For
thoughts?
me,
Go on, Tommy.
For me, definitely, you know, alcohol for me, I've never been a person, even when I was a young person, I never particularly like loved alcohol. I always found it hard to actually like find a drink that I actually liked and that I enjoyed. I think like for me, when I found Guinness, when I found white wine, and when I found cocktails, and this literally, I found those three things like late in my life, and for me, like that's how I enjoy alcohol is like either having one of those things, and it's more so like just having a few drinks. Like I hate actually going out, like when you get to like a nightclub or that, and it's like, oh no, like I have to drink like vodka or something like that. For me, like that, because I just know the impact that that's going to have on me the next day is just not good. Like, you know, I just do not like being in that state. And definitely for me, over the last couple of years, I've drank less, and less. I've never done obviously the 100 days off alcohol and that, because I just enjoy a glass of white wine now and then. But for me, I do think alcohol definitely has like a place in society, because I do enjoy it. You know, as he said, I do like socializing, and like we're going to a wedding tomorrow. I actually can't wait for that, because like the last couple of weeks have just been so insane for me, and I can't wait to like go and have
Guinness, white
like,
wine, and cocktails.
Yeah, but like
Yeah.
it's actually going to be nice to have like that downtime and like sit down and actually have a drink with people that you're friendly with. You know, it definitely has a place in life, but I definitely have never been into it where like I've never like craved alcohol. I've never craved it in my life. You know, thankfully, I've never had a negative relationship with it. So for me, it's definitely that's a real positive that I can say over my lifetime, is that I've never had a negative relationship with it where it's like become dangerous or had like a real negative impact on my life. Only on my physical health back in those days when the two girls worked at Phillies.
I guess for me, I think it is definitely down. You've kind of touched on the same points. I think it 100% it's the relationship you have with alcohol, with how you feel in the events that are around alcohol. I know for me, I used to use alcohol a lot as a crutch for anxiety, and it used to help take the anxiety out of the night, but then the next day I'd be riddled with the anxiety, and I felt like because I was so maybe anxious going to the event, that the alcohol, the way it affected with my body in that sense, the next day I felt the repercussions to it. But it's the relationship you have with alcohol and at the event you're at. Like I love going when I'm around people that I enjoy being around and having a couple of drinks and actually enjoying the drink for its taste and what it has, rather than drinking it in the hope that it's going to get me to a certain buzz that's going to allow me to enjoy myself. And I think a lot of people have that mentality that, oh, we just have to drink to get drunk, and then when we get drunk, it'll be a good night. It's deemed a good night. I think that's also a big Irish thing. And then in terms of going off it, I did the 100 days off alcohol as well, and I'm definitely drinking a lot less in the last year or so. But my huge benefits was the mental clarity. Like, I have to be kind of creative, and I felt like if I was drinking too much at the weekend, I wouldn't get my creativity or like that back until a Wednesday, and then sure, it's the weekend again, and I was just slowing down my whole progress. Self-doubt as well. I feel like my self-doubt after a heavy weekend of drinking or a night out, like that voice in my head is so much louder. And I think doing the stint off alcohol, I realized how much I loved living life in that bubble rather than the other. So yeah, I think I still love to have a drink and stuff, but it's doing it for around the right people and in the right company rather than just this thing that you do every weekend because for the sake of it kind of thing.
Yeah. I can't wait to actually have the episode on alcohol now. And because, like, Tommy, you touch on it, like, it affects your physical health. Roshan, you touch on it affects your mental health. There's no doubt about it. It negatively affects those things, but everything is a trade-off in life, and you have to look at some of the positives, which we've always said is in terms of like social health. So like there is actual benefits or positives, I think, to it for people, and it's a really interesting topic that we are going to get into in the next week or two, and I'm not going to say any more because it's all going to be said in detail. I think we definitely need 45 minutes to talk about our relationship with alcohol.
We should have a drink while we do it.
I was thinking that myself, actually. Tommy, we should record will we do a vlog, a wedding vlog tomorrow about our relationship with alcohol?
Yeah. Talking about Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
Mr. Sauvignon Blanc.
We can come back next week and tell you how we got on with the Guinness, white wine, and cocktails. Right. Dean, thank you for joining us today. I think we got it in around 45 minutes, but thank you for the questions as well. We are going to be doing these Q&As. Try to do them maybe once a month, once every 6 weeks, because I actually really like them. They bring up a lot of interesting questions, so keep them coming in. And yeah, we will see you all in the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Future Fitness Lifestyle. If you found value in today's show, please take a moment to leave us a review and share it with someone who could benefit. Every single review or share helps us grow the show and will allow us to keep bringing you more great content. Stay tuned for weekly episodes where we'll be sharing more tips and insights to help you take your health, fitness, and mindset to the next level. Thanks again for joining us, and remember, consistency beats perfection. See you in the next episode.